Cricket Last Stories with me, Neel Khagram. Today we're joined by Deep Dasgupta. How are you doing?
Very good, Neil. Good indeed. As good as the current situation has kept us all, I guess.
Yes, uncertain times for all. So let's take it all the way back for yourself. So you're born in Kolkata, but your childhood, it was actually in Delhi. Talk us through your earliest memories and how you first kind of got the love of cricket.
Uh, my extended family is from Calcutta, so obviously it's my parents moved to Delhi when because of job, my dad's job, way back in the late '60s. So yeah, I mean, as it happens in Indian homes, when my mom was expecting me, she came over to her place, to her mother's place, and that's the reason I was born here. So went back to Delhi and grew up there. I spent 16, 17 years of my life. Did all my education from Delhi, and then moved to Bengal. I was in Calcutta, and ever since this is my home. And as far as cricket is concerned, a lot to do with my elder brother, who was an athlete. So, and he's quite elder to me. I mean, he's 8.5, 9 years elder to me. So he was an athlete. So my mom used to take him for practice sessions, and I was too young to be left at home. So I would come along, and that's one how it started in terms of systematically in an organized way. But the love for cricket started predominantly from the '83 World Cup, to be honest. I was 6 years old, and at that point in time, all you could hear or see was cricket. Everywhere around, everyone was playing cricket. You go to somebody's house, whether it's your friends or whoever, everyone was talking about cricket and cricketers. So it was quite natural to fall in love with the sport, especially at that point in time. And then '83 happened, then '85 happened, won that mini World Cup. I mean, it was cricket all around, so it was quite normal. And then as I mentioned, I started going to an academy when I was 8 years old, predominantly not to play cricket, but just to be there with my brother, who was an athlete. And then I was too young to be inducted into the cricket side of the coaching side of things. So I was put into gymnastics because as an 8-year-old, I could only do was gymnastics. The only sport I was allowed to do was gymnastics. But then what used to happen was I would finish my warm-ups in the gymnastics and come back and stand outside the cricket field and keep watching kids playing cricket. So one of the days, the coach there, and he's a fantastic coach, Gushan Singh sir. He called me. He's like, "Why do I see you standing outside every day?" And I told him, "Sir, I want to play cricket." And he said, "Oh, you're too young." But then he told my dad and my mom was, let him come and be around the cricket field. Officially, I can't take him, but then just let him be around. So I would be hanging around cricketers. I would be hanging around these senior guys and the coach. And once in a while, he would chuck a few balls at me. I would go around, run around, pick up balls and all. That's how the love affair with the sport started.
So you talk about the World Cup,
Yeah.
the pin-up boy couple there, but kind of what attracted you to wicket keeping?
I tell you what. I always wanted to be part. I figured out I couldn't bowl. Right. I tried everything as young kids do. I figured I couldn't bowl. I batted all right. And then what I realized was when I was fielding somewhere like deep, mid on or wherever, I was away from the sport, and I didn't like that. I didn't like that part of the sport where you don't do much. You finish with your batting, and then you're standing there doing nothing. So one day I wanted to keep, and I liked it. I like the fact that you're always in the spotlight. You're always part of the game, and also the fact that you can dive around and and I remember our ground used to be really really good. It used to be lush green and all, so would love diving around and like being in the middle of the game and being part of the game every single moment. So I said, yeah, let's do this.
And then when did you first get recognized into the Delhi system?
Yeah, so from an early age, to be honest, because like I said, I started early. So the coaches, my real coach, first real coach was a lady called Sunita Sharma. And obviously Bhushan sir saw that in me, and Bhushan sir sent me to her. We're in the same area, but two different grounds. And it was pretty early that people started saying, what, this guy can play the sport. And from the age of 12, 13 onwards, I was in that, there used to be under 15 back then. It wasn't under 16, it used to be under 15 back then, state team. And then I used to start going when I was 12, 13. And when I was 12, 13, there was a chance that I would have played for under 15 at the age that early. But then, as things happen, people say, oh, he's too young, blah, blah, blah. So I said, I thought from 12, 13 onwards, it was quite serious, and life was quite disciplined and regimented. Wake up early morning, go to school, from school, go straight for practice. From practice, my dad would pick me up on his way back from office, and then come back, do your homework. Weekends, go play matches. So it was quite disciplined and regimented, and started early.
And then you made the move back to Bengal, where you played your senior cricket. On your Ranji Trophy debut in '98, you got 100. Would at that time, did you see your greatest strength with the gloves or with the bat?
I knew I could bat. I knew I could bat. I knew I could keep as well. But I've always looked at myself as a wicket-keeper batsman. There are quite a few people who said, okay, because there's only one wicket-keeper who can play in a game, why don't you look at yourself as a batsman? I said, I don't mind playing as a batsman. But, internally, I could never see myself only as a batsman. I made my debut as a batsman because Saha Karim was the captain, and he was also the wicketkeeper of Bengal that point in time. But I could never see myself as a wicketkeeper, as in just a batsman, right? So yeah, that's one of the things. And moving to Bengal was again an accident. It wasn't a thought through or planned move per se. Because what happens is, by the time you're 16, I had already played for Delhi by then. And cricket was very serious. And like every other kid, for summer vacation, we would come to Calcutta because my extended family was here, spend a month here during the summer vacations. And at that point in time, staying away from cricket for a month plus was a huge thing. Couldn't stay without cricket for that long. So asked somebody if I could join them. And at that point in time, Bengal under-19 practice was happening here in Calcutta. So I asked the coach, the Bengal under-19 coach, and it was very, very kind of him to allow me to practice with them. So I started practicing. I practiced for a month, and then there's a tournament called Moinudullah, which happens here in Hyderabad in India. So Bengal was picking their under-19 team to go play that tournament. And because I qualified, because I was born here in Calcutta, so I qualified to play for Bengal. They selected me. I went and played. I did all right. They picked me for the under-19 team, the main under-19 BCCI tournament. That's where I think my parents had to take that call, whether to continue with Bengal or come back to Delhi and see what it was there.
And then you also mentioned that you saw yourself more as a wicketkeeper batsman. There's a lot of talk in the modern game at the moment that a lot of debate, I should say, that do you pick your best glove man or a batsman, predominantly a batsman with with wicketkeeping in their secondary kind of suit. What's your views on that?
A couple of things. First of all, I don't see any wicketkeeper who is not an average batsman or better than an average batsman. I can look back as far as, say, Alan Knott and Rodney Marsh and Wasim Bari, Syed Kirmani. People that I've actually seen a bit of their work and their matches. They were all average or better than average batsmen. So keepers have always been decent batsmen. And then obviously things changed, let's say, post Gilchrist, Boucher, when they were seriously looked as a batsman, not just a keeper who can bat. And thing now is, it all boils down to the combination to a great extent. Now you have a situation in England where in a playing 11 you can have 3 wicket keepers, right? There have been test matches where Foakes, Pesto and Butler, all 3 of them have played a test match together. So I guess that's how wicket keepers have evolved in the last couple of decades, and yes, there's always a question of like you mentioned, you pick a batsman wicketkeeper or a wicketkeeper batsman. But I guess it's like I said, it's got to do with the combination, because if you want to go in, and if, for example, if you have bowlers who can bat a bit, you know, you can afford to have a keeper not scoring too many runs. But if you look at teams where you have four bowlers who can't really contribute that much with the bat, then, you know, you kind of hamstrung. That's where you have to get a wicket keeper who's a good enough batsman and can walk in the side as a batsman. So I think the combination of the team, makes a huge difference.
I also mentioned that you got 100 on your Ranji Trophy debut. You played in an era where it's not only some amongst the great Indian batsmen in the country's produced, but in terms of the history of the game as a whole. Do you think the Ranji Trophy was a big kind of, in terms of competitiveness, etc.? Was that did that aid the kind of development of players as yourself and the modern day greats?
Yeah, to a certain extent, I would not deny that. The other important thing is we didn't have the T20 format then, right? It was all about 1-day cricket or 5-day cricket. So these were the two options, right? And so obviously Ranji Trophy was of first class cricket, and it's across. I'm not just talking about India. If you look at across the cricketing world, with T20 cricket and a lot of these T20 domestic leagues that are happening, a lot of people are kind of moving away from the day's cricket, the red ball cricket. Because when we were growing up, that wasn't an option. Even for 1-day cricket, selection for 1-day cricket, you have to have a good first class season, right? It wasn't looked separately, as in, you know, only your 1-day season and only your first class season. So to get selected even for the 1-day side, you've got to have a good first class season. So first class was extremely, extremely important. Not that it's not anymore, but yes, people have found other avenues too. You know, if you go to a coaching academy now and speak to a 12-year-old and ask them which format would they prefer, they'd say T20. A lot of them would say T20. So I think that's where the difference is as compared to what it was 20 years ago.
And then the 2000-2001 season, the first 3 games, I looked up a few stats. I think you got 13 dismissals and you were averaging 38 with the bat. You then got your chance in the 1-day team, the full international India team. Did you feel ready at the call-up?
See, the thing is, that's a good question, because at that point in time, again, pre-IPL, the difference between domestic and international is still quite a bit, even now. But pre-IPL, you only would figure out once you play for the country. Once you play international cricket, only then you realize and you figure out what needs to be done. You know, how do you bridge the gap and all that. But at least, one of the biggest advantages of all these T20 tournaments which are happening, IPL, because I'm talking from an Indian perspective, is that now you get a taste of international cricket before you play international cricket, right? Let's talk about the Vitality Blast or the 100, whenever that happens, hopefully next summer. So all the youngsters who are coming through the ranks, they get an idea of what international cricket is all about, with crowd, with media spotlight, the players, most importantly, the players you're playing with or against top international players. So I think that was the thing back then, because before I played for the country, because of the international schedule and the program, the FTP, not too many international players did get an opportunity to play in the domestic cricket because they were busy playing international. So that's where I think you suddenly, when you start playing international cricket, you realize, you know what, there is a big difference. I need to bridge it as soon as possible. And what you're saying, the question that you asked about me being ready, I think I figured out I was after the first test match, that I was ready for international cricket. You figure out in the first hour or half an hour, whether you can handle these bowlers and all, or you can handle these conditions and all. I thought after the first half an hour, 45 minutes, I was like, I think I can do this.
Yeah, so initially, I know you mentioned your test match, you made your debut against South Africa, but before that, you had the ODIs, the 5 ODIs. Was your game more suited to the longer format or the shorter format? Because you played the 5 and then you didn't get a chance again. Where did you see your game at that stage?
Uh, Obviously, at that stage, I would look at red ball cricket because that's something that was extremely comfortable, and that's how my mind was working at that point in time. Uh, and that's how I wanted to play at that point in time. But if you ask anyone who's seen me grow up and play cricket, I've always been aggressive and attacking that way, and mentally and from a technical point of view as well. At that point in time, it was different because I was in a different mindset. So that was one. Secondly, with one day, I mean, was still trying to find out what's my position, right? Uh, 5, 6 or open. So I was still trying to find out in domestic cricket as well, where do I kind of fit in, and based on that, obviously I would develop. So at that point in time, again, a lot of emphasis was given on first class cricket, as I mentioned. So the focus was, okay, first class cricket, this is where I belong. Okay, I'm an opening batsman, I'm a top order batsman. But one day I was still trying to find out open, middle order, low middle order, where do I fit in.
And then when you came into the international setup, which player helped you settle in the most, brought team morale up, etc.? Can you give us a little insight into the dressing room?
I think all of them was absolutely brilliant because I really did not know them that well before that. Like, because I mentioned, did not play too much against them in the domestic circuit before that. So with most of them, I was interacting for the first time. But it was absolutely brilliant because the moment landed in South Africa, a few of them said, let's go have dinner together, the senior guys. At that point in time, we still had room sharing. That was the last series where we had room sharing. So my roommate was SS Das, who I've played a lot of under-19 cricket with. So that was a great help because he would tell me about, because by then he had already played, I think, a couple of years of international cricket by then. So he was quite experienced by then, and he would keep telling me, okay, this is what you need to do, and blah blah blah. And I would kind of always be with him and try and follow him what he was doing. And but I think all of them, all of them were very, very good with me, extremely good, and accepted me, would take me out for dinner, spend time. For example, Sachin. So this was just before the test series would start, and there was a day off and was optional practice. And our coach John Wright asked, who wants to go for a knockdown? I said I would go, and Sachin said he would go. And it was interesting. So it was an indoor practice facility, and such I was practicing on one net, I was on the next net. And then after a while, he came over, and then we had a long session, around 40-45 minute session. And he spent that time telling me what test cricket is all about, changes that I need to make and how I need to be mentally to focus. And then he was feeding the balls into the bowling machine, and there was like good 40-45 minutes. And I thought that was brilliant because at that point in time, I was not even going to play the first test. At that point in time, it was Sameer Dige who was going to play the first test. I was not going, yeah, so I was not going to play the first test anyways. But he took his time out and he was there with me for that long, and I thought that was phenomenal.
And then following that, you played against England. You got 100.
Yeah.
That your proudest moment in a India shirt?
Yeah, absolutely. Is that the best innings that I've played in my short career? Maybe not the best innings. I thought the best innings was the 67 I got in Port Elizabeth. But the 100 is always special. Not that I have too many of them. It's only 100 I have. So it was special. It was special also because the other thing that stood out was there's this big question whether keepers can open or not.
Yeah, I was going to ask this question. Yeah, I want to like your opinion on this. Yeah.
Yeah. So what it was a challenge for me because we batted second. So the first day I was keeping, I think I kept for maybe 70-75 overs. I kept for, and then I went out and batted. And I think I was out in the dressing room only 2 sessions, maybe at the most 2 sessions in that test match. So I was on the field for 4+ days out of 5, or yeah, maybe less because it ended 5 on the fifth day, early fifth day. But I was on the ground. So I think, yeah, it was satisfying from that perspective as well. Obviously, Test 100 is big, but also the fact that, keeping wickets for so long and then going out there, batting, and my style was different. I wasn't somebody who's going to get 100 at that point in time, at least, get 100 in 150 deliveries. So I don't know, I took my sweet time. So I was very, very pleased with myself.
But do you think that keeping wicket and then opening the batting, do you think that contributed to you having a shorter career, not getting the run in the side? Do you think that fatigue played a part of it? You didn't have a settled kind of position. You look at the modern day, the keeper usually bats at 7. Your thoughts?
Yeah. I don't think so, but I do agree with what you're saying. To the extent that if somebody wants to have a longish career, it's very difficult. I mean, it's very difficult to bat in the top order and also keep. It's all right for a early 20-year-old to do that for 2-3 years or maybe 4 years, but with age and everything else, your recovery time increases. At early 20s and all, you don't really realize, and because you're fit both physically and mentally, and physically more, so you don't realize the fatigue. But with age and all, because the last few years I batted at number 6 in first class cricket as well, it does take a toll on your body and your mind. But if you ask me if that's one of the reasons why I had a shortish career, no. The reason would be a lot more mental than anything else.
So can you expand on the mental side of the game?
Right, fair enough. So listen, I agree. What the thing was, the thing that is such an important aspect of international cricket, and more so now, is how do you handle criticism? And I think that's one thing which I've got better with age and maturity. That's something that was a little difficult for me at that point in time. I did not realize, obviously, people have a job to do, so they do what they do. And you can't take criticism seriously. You need to have a plan to counter that, which I didn't. And what happens is at that level, everything is about confidence. Everything is about, how good you feel about yourself. And what was happening was that I started doubting myself and questioning my abilities because I was listening to that criticism. Because I tell you this, a lot of, starting from Sachin to Saurav to Rahul, they were very, very good. They kept telling me, don't do this, don't do that. Don't read newspapers, don't watch news channels or something. Just stay away from, try and protect yourself from all this. Because I believe they also realized that it was affecting me. Then what happened was I took a year off. I used to go and play in England. So I took a year off. I played in England. I got married. I played in England. And what I also did was and that 3-4 months, that English summer was phenomenal, because I realized the reasons that I was playing the game, and it was all about having fun, and criticism is part of it. And then technically also, what happened, I needed to make a few changes. And what happened during those 3-4 months is I got my coaching badges, ECB level 1s and level 2s and all that. And I started looking at my technique and started coaching myself, right? And I found a few things which needed to be changed, which I changed. So after that, I did go to the Australia tour 2003-04. Played a couple of side games, did really well. With the bat, got some runs. But most importantly, the question mark was on my keeping. Did really well. Nobody had an issue with it. But unfortunately, didn't get an opportunity after that. Didn't play a test match in that series, apart from the side games. And then, didn't get an opportunity after that.
So you kept wicket to 2 of the modern day greats, spinners. They never produced Neel Khagram, Harbhajan Singh. You had the best seat in the house. Can you kind of commentate on their kind of strengths and why they're so successful?
Both of them. I think they were, obviously, Bhaji was naturally more gifted, if I may say so. Both of them tough as nails. They were tough guys. Anil Bhai was smart. His persistent work ethics second to none. Those guys are proper role models. Extremely good role models. And obviously, I mean, the reason why they are greats, as you mentioned, it's not just about natural talent, but the hard work, not just hard, but hard and smart work, reading batsmen, all that stuff, was absolutely phenomenal. And someone like Anil Bhai and Rahul and Sachin, I mean, the work ethics. And another great guy, Srinath. I mean, I think one of the names which we don't actually appreciate the kind of contribution that Javagal Srinath has had over that period of time, and in cricket in general. I mean, he was phenomenal, and those work ethics. That's something that stayed with me since. I mean, and it's always been that case. I mean, I was never naturally very gifted, not naturally very talented, but I knew that I had to work hard. But the work ethics and everything else, and as you mentioned, someone like Bhaji and Anil Bhai, phenomenal people, both on and off. One of the things that Anil Bhai I learned from him and Rahul was how do you unwind. I've always been a very intense kind of a person, and like 24/7, and that did not help my cause. I mean, when thought process is good, it's all right, but when the thought process is negative, I mean, it becomes a quicksand. The more you want to get out, the further you sink in. So stuff like how to unwind. Maybe for example, Anil Bhai, it's about photography. For Rahul Bhai, it was reading and going out and seeing the country and stuff like that. Things like that, I think, learned a lot from these people.
And then when you mentioned you didn't get a chance in the international team again. You go back, you skipper Bengal.
Yeah.
Were you an actual leader? And who is the best captain you've played under? And what did you kind of learn from each of them that kind of contributed to your kind of leadership?
Obviously, sort of one of the best. I mean, the best leader that I've played under. I think he's a natural leader. Sort of. He just. I mean, you look at him and you want him to lead you. The way he manages people, the way he has this knack of getting the best out of you. He understands people. He understands as a human being what does X and Y would want, and then he would try and create that environment to get the best out of him. And he still is. I mean, he's the president now, and he's a national leader. As far as I go, I mean, I would like to believe I am. I just led Bengal twice. I mean, 2 years, and twice we reached the finals of. I mean, unfortunately, we couldn't win it. But I was also very, very lucky. I mean, a captain is only as good as his team. So I was also lucky to have a very, very good side, very talented people. And I was looking at that picture. Somebody sent me that picture of that side, and I was looking at it, and I counted. We had 7 people who've been part of the Indian setup from that 14. So that's how good that side was. And including Saurav, I think it was 8 people who've been around the Indian side or been in the Indian side. So yeah, but was those 2 years were, I think, the most enjoyable years that I've had on a cricketing field.
Yeah, then you said you had the time at the Indian Cricket League, but you come back at the back end of your career. What was post retirement like? Were you ready to close the game?
Yeah, I mean, I tell you what, I retired in 2009-10. That season, the last season, I came back from ICL, played one season, just wanted to play one season before I get on with it. I wanted to play more, but I got an offer to manage an IPL side. Okay, so somebody said, so there was this offer, and I said, let's do this. And I still wanted to continue playing, right? But then there was a rule which came out that if you are part of the admin side, then you can't play, right? And so I had to make a choice. So the owner, gentleman, he said, Deep, listen, you're not going to play for India because obviously Dhoni has already become MS Dhoni that we know of. By then he was already there, and he said, then why don't you start looking at life after your playing days, and this is a great place to start. So yeah, I was head of operations, and that was a big thing in itself. And that's where I said, okay, let's let's call it a day and look at life after. And this is a good opportunity. So I did that for 3 years. And 2013-14, I got into media, and yeah, I've been part of it since.
And when you look at the current Indian team at the moment, and I'm talking about wicket keeping specifically,
Yeah.
you've got Rishabh
Yeah.
Pant, Saha, and then you've also got Dhoni there still, and then KL Rahul. Now, who do you think is the best gloveman out of them all?
Best gloveman? I think the best gloveman is Ridhiman Shah, without a shadow of doubt. I think the best gloveman, one of the best in the world. I know people back in England have a different idea. I know that, and fair enough. But I think if not the best, he's one of the best in the world, Ridhiman Shah. Obviously, someone like MS Dhoni, he's brilliant as well. He's got his own unique method. He's extremely good again. But yeah, I mean, the situation is all right. But, you know, the thing that scares me is the next generation coming through. There are some good keepers coming through. But the issue is, you know, it's like Manchester United, and as soon as Alex Ferguson left, it's going to be very, very difficult for the manager coming in, right? It's same with wicket keeping in India. You know, after MS Dhoni, the next few keepers' lives not going to be easy. It's not going to be easy because it's going to be natural for people to start comparing a 22 or 23-year-old Rishabh Pant with MS Dhoni. But what generally happens, or generally we tend to forget, is we are comparing a 6-month-old Rishabh Pant, 6-month-old international cricket, with MS Dhoni, the legend. I can understand if you start comparing a 6-month-old Rishabh Pant with a 6-month-old MS Dhoni when he had initially come in. Can understand that. But it's a little unfair, but it happens. And so that just brings a lot of pressure on the next guy coming in. Yeah, so just a little scared about that. But talent-wise, there are enough talent. Yeah.
If we make you a selector, hypothetically,
Yeah.
who would you pick in the Test side, and who would the keeper be in the limited over side, in your opinion?
Okay, so T20 as of now, I'd say KL Rahul. I think he's a good gloveman. He's a good wicket keeper because he used to keep wickets. He's not alien to the concept. He used to keep wickets till his under 19 years. And he's a good keeper, and he's a gun batsman. He's a wonderful batsman. So for me, T20 straight away at this point in time, if I have to pick a keeper, would be KL Rahul. 50 overs, I'll still be looking at Rishabh Pant and KL Rahul, but KL Rahul has settled down nicely at number 5, batting at number 5 as well. Because you know what, you prepare a white ball team based on a big tournament which is coming up. So at this point in time, because it's still scheduled, the ICC World Cup T20 is still scheduled for October, you don't want to make any changes, right? So KL Rahul is the best option now. Then again, you have one in 2021, the T20 World Cup. But the next 50 overs is in 2023. So you can start preparing for that World Cup from now on and maybe give a little more opportunities to others. But KL Rahul is doing a fantastic job. Test matches, I'd go with Ridhiman Saha as of now.
And then how do you see the game as a whole in India? Do you think that, obviously, the IPL, the whole Bollywood feel about it, but do you think enough emphasis has been made on Test cricket? I know the skipper, Virat Kohli, does talk about the importance of that being the highest level you can play, but in your opinion, do you think that kind of flows through to the youngsters watching as well as playing?
See, the idea is it's important that they view Test match cricket that way. That is, I think, more important than anything else. If you look at the top names right now in international cricket, they all are gun Test players, starting from Virat to Joe Root to Kane Williamson to Steve Smith, David Warner. All the superstars are Test players. Yes, you also have other big names who are predominantly playing T20, but when you talk about batsmanship or even bowlers, you actually take those names because they're so good in Test match cricket. But you got to understand one thing, that Test match cricket also has to evolve, right? It's not a viewer-friendly format. I mean, over 5 days, from 11 to 6, or in India, it's 9 to 5. It's like working hours, right? Bang in the middle of the working hours. So obviously, it's not a viewer-friendly format, but it's a format which will always be there, which will never as in lose its relevance. And also of late, someone like BCCI, for example, have increased the fee for test matches. It's quite a bit. It's a huge jump, which is a very good sign that. But other things needs to happen also. At the same time, we will have to kind of understand and realize that you have two formats. One is the truest form of the sport, and the purest format, which is the test match. But it might not be self-sufficient or maybe commercially viable, right? Then you have the T20 format or the other shorter formats, which again is extremely viewer-friendly, extremely commercially viable. So you've got to keep these two things in mind and run them parallelly, because the success of test match cricket will depend a lot on T20 cricket or the other commercially viable shorter formats.
So one last question to end. I know you said you're in the media, so you must see a lot of cricket. Is there one player that you can tip that hasn't played for India yet internationally that you can say that he's going to be the next best thing?
Shubman Gill. He's played under 19. He was part of the Indian setup a couple of series. He still hasn't got his cap, but he's genuinely good. He's a top batsman coming through. Obviously, people have seen Prithvi Shaw and all these people, but you know what? The good part about setups in teams like England, India, Australia is the setup is so robust that you'll always be producing quality players. There won't be a situation, unfortunately, like let's say Sri Lanka or West Indies, where you have a generation, they come, they dominate, and when they leave, you have a huge transition period. So because of the setup being so good in few of these countries, unfortunately for us, that you'll always find quality players coming through the system. So, and to be very honest, if you look back at history of Indian cricket, we've been very fortunate. Starting from the 1910s, we've always had, every generation, every decade had a superstar. So you always had role models. The next generation, the younger generation, always had a role model to follow. And same with Australia and England. So I think that's the reason we'll always find good players, quality players coming through, and the transition from one generation to the other smooth.
So perfect, Deep. Really appreciate your time. Thank you for giving such a great insight into your career and everything else.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Thank you.
So Neel Khagram, Cricket Life Stories, Deep Dasgupta. Thank you.